What you're about to see isn't just old photography. It's raw humanity, frozen in time, waiting to be uncovered. Welcome to my channel. If you enjoy exploring rare vintage images from the past, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell icon so you never miss a journey into history. Mulberry Street, Little Italy. Year 1900. A dense street market view of Mulberry Street showing rows of market stalls, carts, horse-drawn wagons and crowds of people in turn-of-the-century dress. This is a color photochrome print, a hand-tinted photomechanical process, produced for postcards, catalogs by the Detroit Publishing Company. The image captures the energetic immigrant neighborhood known as Little Italy. Sleeping, homeless children. Year 1890. Black and white photograph showing 3 children sleeping in a cramped street corner cellar grate, one of Jacob Riis's emblematic images documenting the living conditions of New York's poorest. The photo was used in Riis's reform publications to push tenement reform. The composition is stark and intimate, revealing cramped living spaces. Bandit's Roost. Year 1888. An alley street interior showing men, tenement windows and laundry overhead, one of Riis's most famous images used to illustrate the dangerous and cramped alleys where gangs and poverty clustered. The view focuses on a narrow passage behind tenements with residents and onlookers filling the frame. Broadway with horse-drawn carriages, Edward Anthony Stereograph. Year 1860. Stereograph view of Broadway showing horse-drawn carriages, street activity and rows of mid-19th century buildings, a wide atmospheric street view that feels transported from the 1860s. The stereo card format provides excellent detail of street life, transport and storefronts. Baxter Street Alley in Mulberry Bend. Year 1888. A narrow alley shot with children and ragged piles of refuse, showing the cramped rear lot living conditions in Mulberry Bend, 5 Points area. The vertical composition emphasizes stairs, tenement walls, and the alley floor, typical Riis subject matter meant to highlight squalid conditions. Wall Street east from Nassau Street. Year 1911. Elevated perspective looking down Wall Street shows Drexel/J.P. Morgan and Company Building, Federal Hall and horse-drawn traffic. Street crowded with vendors, goods, carts and pedestrians. Street crowded with vendors, goods, carts and pedestrians, a vivid snapshot of commerce on a busy street. Photochrome street view. Year 1900. Color photochrome view of a New York street, richly tinted with bustling activity. Street photographers in Little Italy. Year 1900. 2 street photographers with their cameras set up in Little Italy, capturing scenes or portraits of passers-by. Broad Avenue street level view. Late 19th century. Elevated or angled view down a city block with carts, pedestrians and multi-story buildings, everyday urban activity. Busy street with carriages, elevated railroad, Herald Square. Year 1905. Street scene near Herald Square, showing horse-drawn carriages, the elevated railroad structure, and storefronts. City Hall, New York. Year: 1855. Early photograph of New York City Hall in albumen or early photographic process with square and nearby buildings. Street types of New York. Year: 1897. Black and white photograph titled Street Types of New York, showing a characteristic street scene of the era. Daytime street views. Year: 1893. A series of daytime street views showing typical commercial buildings, pedestrians, carts, and activity. Lodgers in Bayard Street tenement. Year: 1889. Black and white photograph of a cramped tenement room with men and women squeezed into a tiny space, captured at night using magnesium flash. The sight of beds rented for just 5 cents, below legal minimums. The subjects look startled, adding emotional depth to the squalid scene. Sabbath Eve in a coal cellar, Ludlow Street. Late 19th century. A Jewish cobbler prepares for Sabbath Eve inside a dim, cramped coal cellar, table set with braided challah and modest utensils, maintaining ritual under extreme poverty. The Terminal, Alfred Stieglitz. Year: 1893. A horse-drawn carriage driver watering his steaming horses in the snow-carpeted streets outside the old post office. No romanticism, just street life as art. Street Arabs, bare-legged, Mulberry Street. Year: 1888. Photograph of barefoot street children sleeping or wandering on Mulberry Street. Bare-legged children capture the vulnerability and poverty of urban childhood. The Short Tail Gang under pier at Corlier's Hook. Year: 1890. Men of a notorious gang sit under a pier, eating from cans and drinking. Depicts criminal underbelly of waterfront tenements in Corlier's Hook. Times Square evolution. Year: 1898. Early view of what became Times Square, then Longacre Square, showing low-rise buildings, streetcars, and pedestrian life, a snapshot before its skyscraper-era transformation. Fifth Avenue after a snowstorm. Year: 1905. A broad view of Fifth Avenue blanketed with snow. Pedestrians strolled along quiet, clean streets, capturing early winter serenity in the city. Gillinder Building and surroundings. Early 20th century. Street and building perspective focusing on the Gillinder Building, highlighting architectural transition to taller, more modern structures. Broadway with Post Office. Year: 1894. A clear mid-century capture of Broadway featuring the old post office building, horse-drawn traffic, and early street infrastructure. Rivington Street and Bowery. Early 20th century. Grainy photo capturing a busy intersection of Rivington Street and Bowery, with pedestrians, storefronts, and tenements. Typical Lower East Side dynamic. New York City, 1908. Wide street panorama. Year, 1908. A long horizontal photograph capturing a broad street in New York City, busy with pedestrians and street traffic stretching into the distance with early skyscrapers. West Street. Year, 1900. Street view of West Street with pedestrians and street activity. Clear, clean image representative of Detroit's dry plate precision. Broad Street, Manhattan. Year, 1880. This narrow street scene captures Broad Street, framed by imposing commercial buildings like the Mills Building and the Western Union Telegraph Office. The cobblestone street, early utility poles, and sparse horse-drawn traffic evoke a city on the verge of modernization. It's a rare glimpse into Lower Manhattan's architectural character just before the asphalt era began. 42nd Street, New York City. Year, 1880. A sepia-tone street view from Valentine's Manual Archives showing 42nd Street between 5th and 6th Avenues. The West Presbyterian Church stands prominently on the left, and just visible the structure of the elevated 6th Avenue line. World Trade Center, skyline view. Year, 1970. Black and white skyline photograph showing the Twin Towers and downtown Manhattan from across the water. An iconic urban panorama of the decade. The image reads as both civic monument and everyday cityscape. Broadway and Ann Street, West Side, New York City. Year, 1867. A mid-19th century view showing Herald/Lower Broadway architecture and street life, useful for seeing how the commercial center looked just after the Civil War. 21 to 23 Pearl Street, New York City. Year, 1980. A clear architectural street photo showing row buildings on Pearl Street. Bracklow's prints are crisp examples of late 19th century street photography and are preserved in local collections. The Bowery. 1970s. Iconic gritty 1970s. Bowery street photography by Leland Bobet. MCNY Accession shows this image as taken in the mid-1970s. Marquees and closed theaters on West 43rd Street. Year, 1994. Times Square/42nd to 43rd Street theater marquees in the mid-1990s during the neighborhood's transition. Empty or partially closed theater fronts convey the pre-Disneyfication era. Halsey Street, U.S. Post Office. Year, 1992. Neighborhood storefront, post office facade on Halsey Street. An everyday streetscape showing signage, gated doors, and local activity typical of early 90s Brooklyn. 14th Street and 3rd Avenue. Year, 1990. A raw black and white look at daily life on 14th Street and 3rd Avenue. The photo captures pedestrians, traffic, and storefront energy at a time when downtown Manhattan still felt gritty. Weber's street-level perspective highlights the human rhythm of the city in the early 90s. Cruising 42nd Street. Year, 1990. A wide-angle black-and-white shot of 42nd Street showing the pulse of Times Square before its transformation in the late 90s. The mixture of cars, neon signs, and crowds portrays the gritty reputation of Midtown during this period. Weber's lens frames the street as both chaotic and alive. The Strangler, year 1980. An intense, candid street confrontation where one man's hand is wrapped around another's neck, raw, visceral, and emblematic of Bruce Gilden's raw documentary style with Magnum.